Imagine you just finish a grueling evening track session. You hit your macros, you get a full 8 hours of sleep, and you wake up to find you've, well, actually lost muscle mass.
Right, and you've tanked your testosterone by nearly 25%.
Exactly. Which sounds insane, but if your evening routine is misaligned, that is exactly what your body is doing in the dark.
Yeah.
Most of us treat sleep like, a simple light switch.
Oh, absolutely.
You wrap up that punishing tempo run, brush your teeth, hit the pillow, and just expect to flip from 100% intensity straight into deep recovery. Just click, lights out, job done.
Yeah, we all want it to be that simple. But the reality, especially when you look at the research for today's deep dive into runners' recovery habits, is that your body operates nothing like a light switch.
All right, it's way more complicated.
It's a massive, complex industrial factory. If you're an endurance athlete, you can't just cut the power to the factory and walk away.
Because then everything just breaks down, right?
Exactly. Doing that damages the machines, it halts the assembly lines, and it completely locks out the maintenance crew. You need a highly specific, orchestrated shutdown sequence.
Which is the core mission for us today. We're pulling our insights entirely from Sun-Dried, looking specifically at their comprehensive analysis of athletic sleep and muscle protein synthesis.
It's such a great breakdown, too.
It really is. We're going to walk you through the 5 crucial habits that make up this ultimate shutdown sequence. Because, as Sun-Dried points out, if you're out there trashing your legs on the pavement but spending your evening doom scrolling, you're essentially building a high-performance engine on a cardboard chassis.
Yeah, that's a perfect way to put it. The evening routine is the absolute primary determinant of whether your night becomes a regenerative window or just, a period of fragmented unconsciousness.
Right. Sleep isn't just logging off.
No, not at all. It's a highly active biological theater. Modern athletic demands, like those high-intensity evening runs, put you in direct conflict with your evolutionary circadian rhythms.
Because you're all amped up from the run.
Exactly. You're asking your nervous system to leap from peak sympathetic arousal, that adrenaline-pumping fight-or-flight state, directly into deep parasympathetic rest.
And the body just won't do that without a push. Okay, let's unpack this. I always picture the sleeping body like a literal construction site.
Oh, I like that analogy.
Right. So during the day, you're running, creating all these micro tears in your muscle tissue. You're doing controlled damage to the building. And sleep is when the night shift workers arrive to fix the damage.
To reinforce the walls, yeah.
But here's the massive gap in that logic. If you finish dinner at 7 and don't eat again until 7 a.m., that's a 12-hour fast. How do we bridge that gap without leaving those workers standing around with no bricks?
Right, they have nothing to build with.
Doesn't the body just start eating its own muscle tissue to survive?
It does. And what's fascinating here is the hormonal reality of that overnight fasting problem. It's pretty stark.
Stark.
Well, when you enter non-rapid eye movement, stage 3, what we usually call slow wave sleep, your body releases a massive wave of growth hormone and testosterone.
Okay, so the workers arrive on site.
Exactly. These hormones are the primary drivers of tissue repair. But if your sleep is fragmented, or if you lack the nutritional building blocks in your blood, your body stays in a state of catabolic dominance.
Catabolic dominance, meaning the system is actively breaking things down instead of building them up.
Right. You end up with chronically elevated cortisol, which is the stress hormone, and that actively hinders your ability to recover.
Wow.
Yeah, Sun-Dried highlights that just one single night of bad sleep can tank your testosterone levels by that 25% we mentioned earlier.
That is wild, just one night.
One night. So you have these workers on site, but instead of building new muscle fibers, the cortisol forces them to scavenge. They tear down existing muscle just to find the amino acids to keep your vital organs running.
That's a terrifying thought for anyone putting in heavy weekly mileage. You're literally going backward while you sleep. So how do we give them the bricks to last the entire night?
We use what Sun-Dried calls the Casein Protocol.
The Casein Protocol.
Yeah, the entire goal here is to mitigate that overnight fasting period. To do that, runners need to ingest about 40 to 48 grams of micellar casein protein roughly 30 minutes before going to sleep.
Okay, wait. Why casein specifically? Because I know a lot of runners who just chug the standard whey protein shake they use after the gym. Isn't protein just protein?
You'd think so, but no. It all comes down to digestive kinetics. Whey is fast.
Right, fast absorbing.
It causes a rapid spike in amino acids in your blood, which is fantastic right after a workout when you need immediate replenishment.
Right.
But it's terrible for a 12-hour fast.
Because it burns off too quickly.
Exactly. It clears your system entirely in about an hour.
Yeah.
Casein is fundamentally different. When it hits the low pH environment of your stomach acids, It actually precipitates.
Precipitates. What does that mean in the stomach?
It forms a physical clot, like a thick bolus right there in your digestive tract.
Oh, wow. A clot sounds intensely heavy right before lying down to sleep.
I know, it sounds a little gross, but mechanically, it's the exact advantage you want. That clot drastically slows down the rate of gastric emptying.
Okay, making it a slow release.
Right. Instead of a flood of nutrients that disappears instantly, you get a steady drip of amino acids into your bloodstream for up to 6 hours or more.
I see. It's like putting a thick, slow-burning hardwood log on the fire right before bed, instead of tossing in dry kindling that just flares up and burns out in 10 minutes.
That is exactly it. And that slow burn stimulates myofibrillar protein synthesis, which repairs the actual muscle fibers.
Which is what we want.
Plus, it supports mitochondrial protein synthesis, which is the absolute holy grail for an endurance runner's aerobic capacity.
You're building engine efficiency while you sleep.
Exactly. Yeah, and as a bonus detail, Sun-Dried notes that taking in this exact 48-gram bolus of casein before bed actually increases your next morning resting metabolic rate by about 4%.
Wait, really? Just from having a shake before bed, your metabolism is higher the next day.
Yeah. Assuming it fits into your total daily caloric needs, it transforms a period of guaranteed muscle breakdown into a period of net growth and metabolic boost.
Okay, so we've delivered the bricks to the site. The slow-burning fuel is in the tank, but those building blocks can't actually do their job if the construction site is on fire.
Right, inflammation.
Yeah. If I just finish a heavy tempo run in the evening, my body is raging with inflammation. My joints are swollen, my fibers are damaged. To let that casein fuel actually work, we first have to extinguish those flames.
We do.
And I'm going to push back on the research here for a second, because I have a cabinet full of over-the-counter anti-inflammatories. Runners have been popping ibuprofen after hard efforts for decades. Why are we overcomplicating this with tart cherry juice and magnesium?
It's a fair question. And the instinct to reach for the medicine cabinet is strong. But pharmaceutical anti-inflammatories present a massive problem for athletes.
How so?
They can blunt the very adaptation responses your body needs to actually get stronger. You need a little bit of that stress signal to tell the muscle to rebuild.
Oh, so if you completely kill the inflammation, you kill the signal to grow.
Exactly. That's why tart cherry juice, specifically the Montmorency variety, operates as such a powerful recovery tool.
Recovery. Proactive recovery instead of reactive.
Yes, because it has a dual action. First, Montmorency cherries are incredibly rich in anthocyanins, which are potent natural antioxidants.
Okay.
These compounds naturally inhibit the COX-1 and COX-2 enzymes.
Let's break down those enzymes for a second. What are they actually doing in the legs of a runner?
Think of COX-1 and COX-2 as the body's chemical alarm sirens.
Okay, siren.
When you damage a muscle during a run, these enzymes trigger the production of prostaglandins. Those cause the swelling, the heat, and the pain you feel as DOMS delayed onset muscle soreness.
Right, the horrible soreness 2 days later.
Yeah. Pharmaceuticals shut those sirens off completely, which halts the repair signal. But the anthocyanins in tart cherries essentially walk over and just gently turn the volume down on the sirens.
That makes so much sense. You manage the inflammation without halting the adaptation.
Exactly.
But that covers the inflammation. How does cherry juice help with the sleep itself?
That's the second half of the dual action. Montmorency tart cherries are one of the very few natural, bioavailable food sources of melatonin.
Wait, there's actual melatonin in the fruit?
Yeah, they contain about 13.5 nanograms of melatonin per gram of fruit.
So you're simultaneously putting out the localized inflammation fire in your legs while actively signaling to the brain's sleep centers that it's time to shut down.
You're hitting both targets at once. And the data from Sun-Dried on this is really compelling.
What do the numbers look like?
Drinking 240 milliliters, so about 8 ounces of tart cherry juice, 2 hours before bed, adds an average of 84 minutes of sleep time per night.
84 minutes. An hour and a half of extra sleep just from drinking juice.
Just from the juice. It also reduces overall inflammation markers by 47%. And strength athletes report recovering their baseline power 24% faster.
Okay, I am completely sold on the cherry juice. But then there's the magnesium piece of this fire extinguisher protocol.
Right, magnesium is crucial.
Sun-Dried specifically calls out magnesium bisglycinate. They make a very clear point to warn against grabbing whatever cheap supermarket variety is on the shelf. Why does the specific molecular type matter so much?
Well, magnesium is a foundational mineral involved in over 300 enzymatic reactions, but the delivery mechanism dictates whether it actually reaches your muscles.
So the cheap stuff doesn't get there.
Exactly. Cheap forms like magnesium oxide are poorly absorbed. They pull water into your intestines and usually just cause severe gastrointestinal distress.
Oh, which is the absolute last thing a runner wants before bed.
Exactly. You need magnesium bound to amino acid that actually supports the evening goal. Sundried recommends 400 milligrams of magnesium bisglycinate.
Bisglycinate. What makes that specific binding the gold standard for the evening routine?
It's bound to the amino acid glycine. And glycine on its own has a well-documented inhibitory effect on the central nervous system.
Meaning it calms you down.
Yes, it naturally calms neuronal activity. Beyond that, the magnesium itself serves as a natural calcium channel blocker.
Okay, let's map that out. What does a calcium channel blocker actually do in the context of a runner lying in bed with heavy legs?
Think about when your muscles contract during a run. Calcium rushes into the muscle fibers to trigger that firing.
Okay.
To relax, that calcium has to be actively pumped back out. After a hard evening effort, your neuromuscular system is just buzzing. Those fibers are twitching, holding microtension because the calcium is still lingering.
Ah, so they're stuck in the on position.
Right, so think of magnesium as a bouncer at a club.
A bouncer. I like that.
It physically blocks the calcium channels, preventing excitatory calcium from re-entering the muscle cells. That allows those buzzing, twitching muscle fibers to finally power down and physically relax.
Okay, so structurally, we've fixed the internal chemistry. We have the casein fuel slow dripping into the system, and we've put out the inflammatory fire while chemically relaxing the muscles.
Huh? Yeah, the chemistry is handled.
But the nervous system is still redlining, the heart rate is up, the runner is suffering from what Sundried accurately calls a sympathetic hangover. We need to physically pull the autonomic handbrake.
Absolutely. We have to address the nervous system.
And here's where the research gets really interesting for me. Because Sundried talks about foam rolling before bed. Most runners I know view the foam roller as an instrument of medieval torture.
Oh, for sure. Lots of grimacing.
Right. They use it strictly to aggressively break up knots in their calves or IT bands. How does inflicting pain on yourself right before bed actually help you sleep?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, we have to completely reframe what self-myofascial release, or SMR, is actually doing.
Okay, so it's not breaking up knots.
No, the idea that you are mechanically breaking up physical knots or physically stretching out your fascia with a piece of foam is largely a myth. Fascia is incredibly tough.
So you can't just squash it back into place.
You need tools way heavier than a foam cylinder to deform it. The true mechanism of SMR is actually neurophysiological.
Meaning it's communicating with the nervous system, not physically altering the muscle tissue.
Exactly. When you apply sustained broad pressure to the fascia, you're stimulating specialized mechanoreceptors beneath the skin, specifically Ruffini and Pacinian corpuscles.
And what do those do?
They respond to deep pressure and skin stretch. When you stimulate them with slow, broad rolling, they send a very specific signal up the spinal cord to the central nervous system saying, in effect, the threat is past. It is safe to lower the overall neuromuscular tension.
Oh, wow. It's literally a physiological text message telling the brain the coast is clear.
That's a great way to think about it. In an evening context, this slow, deliberate rolling increases what we call vagal tone.
Vagal tone relating to the vagus nerve.
Right. It activates the vagus nerve, which effectively blunts the sympathetic fight-or-flight response and accelerates the lowering of your heart rate.
Which explains why the painful rolling is a bad idea at night.
Yes, Sundried explicitly warns against painful, intense trigger point work at night. If you're wincing in pain, gritting your teeth on the roller, you are spiking your sympathetic arousal all over again.
Because your brain thinks you're under attack.
Exactly. You want slow, sweeping movements over the major muscle groups for 30 to 90 seconds, purely to signal safety.
So no grimacing allowed before bed. You're just mapping the pressure. And they also pair this rolling with targeted breathwork, specifically the 4-7-8 technique.
Yes, breathwork is the fastest manual override you have for your autonomic nervous system.
The 4-7-8 protocol. That's inhaling through the nose for 4 seconds, holding for 7, and exhaling audibly through the mouth for 8, right?
That's the one. It is incredibly effective at dropping the heart rate.
Is the magic entirely in that long exhale?
It is. The prolonged 8-second exhale acts as a physiological stop sign. When you exhale slowly, you stimulate the parasympathetic nervous system, creating a whoosh effect that forces the cardiovascular system to stand down.
That makes sense. And sun-dried also pairs this breathing with progressive muscle relaxation, or PMR.
Yeah, PMR is a fantastic tool.
That's where you systematically tense a muscle group for 5 seconds and then consciously release it for 10 seconds, right? Working your way up the body.
Right, it sounds overly simple, but actively creating peak tension and then completely offloading it has been shown in clinical settings to rapidly lower circulating blood cortisol.
Because you're proving to the body that it can let go.
Exactly. It drops the cardiovascular system down to the precise, slow rhythms required to cross the threshold into deep sleep.
Okay, think about where we are in the shutdown sequence right now. The body is perfectly primed, we're fueled, we're de-inflamed, the muscle fibers are unlocked by the magnesium, and the nervous system has been manually downregulated.
We're ready for sleep.
But if the physical environment of the bedroom sends the wrong biological cues, this entire delicate system will just crash. So what does this all mean for the actual architecture of the room we sleep in?
It means addressing circadian optimization. The brain's master internal clock, the suprachiasmatic nucleus, or SCN, is constantly scanning the environment.
Looking for what time it is.
Right, scanning for cues to determine what time it is and what hormones to release. And the two most powerful cues are light and temperature.
Let's start with light hygiene. We've all heard the warnings about blue light, but sun-dried puts this in really stark terms for athletes. If you're laying in bed scrolling on your phone, you are blasting your SCN with highly concentrated blue light frequencies.
Yes, and to the SCN, that blue light doesn't register as, I'm checking tomorrow's weather.
What does it register as?
It registers, as Sundried puts it, as it is high noon in the Sahara.
Oh, wow. High noon in the Sahara.
Yeah, so the SCN immediately signals the pineal gland to completely suppress the production of melatonin. You are essentially taking all that natural melatonin you just built up from the tart cherry juice and neutralizing it in seconds.
Which is exactly why they recommend a strict 60-minute digital curfew before bed. No screens, no exceptions. And the room itself needs to be a literal cave.
Zero lux, total darkness,
Hmm.
blackout curtains, eye masks, and even putting tape over the little glowing LED lights on your chargers or smoke detectors.
Every little bit counts.
Every single photon of light penetrating your eyelids matters.
This raises an important question about that second cue, temperature. Because a runner's core temperature stays elevated for hours after a hard evening run.
Oh yeah, the metabolism's still churning.
But your core temperature absolutely has to drop by a few degrees to initiate sleep, right?
It's a strict biological prerequisite. You cannot fall into slow wave sleep if your core is running hot. You'll just lie there sweating.
So how do we force it down?
Well, first, Sun-Dried recommends optimizing the room temperature between 60 and 67 degrees Fahrenheit.
Which is roughly 16 to 20 degrees Celsius.
Right, but to rapidly accelerate that core temperature drop, they utilize something called the warm bath paradox.
Okay, the warm bath paradox. This sounds completely backward. If I am radiating heat and sweating from a track session, why on earth would I take a warm bath to cool down?
It does sound counterintuitive, but it comes down to how your circulatory system moves heat.
Okay, walk me through the plumbing.
If you take a warm shower or bath about 90 minutes before bed, the warm water causes massive vasodilation in your skin.
Meaning the blood vessels open up.
Yes. Your blood vessels open wide, drawing all that trapped heat from your deep core out to your extremities and your skin's surface.
Oh, so you're using the warm water to pull the heat out from the inside.
Exactly. Then, when you step out of that warm water and into that cool 60-degree bedroom, all that heat rapidly dissipates off your skin into the air.
That is brilliant.
It triggers a massive rapid plunge in your core body temperature, which sends the ultimate biological signal to the brain to initiate sleep immediately.
You're literally manipulating the body's own plumbing system to flush the heat out.
It's highly effective. And for endurance athletes specifically, Sundried notes that the sheer volume of sleep required is significantly higher than the average person. We aren't talking about surviving the workday on 6 hours.
No, endurance athletes are doing massive tissue damage.
Right. Especially those in high-volume training blocks, they require 8 to 10+ hours of sleep to fully replenish glycogen stores and remodel tissue.
What about naps? Do those count toward the total?
Daytime naps are an excellent tool, but they must be strictly capped at 20 to 30 minutes. Anything longer, and you start bleeding into your nighttime sleep drive.
Which just makes it harder to fall asleep when it actually counts.
Exactly.
They also detail a strategy called sleep banking for race days or heavy travel. How does that work?
Well, if you know you have an early flight, or if pre-race anxiety notoriously ruins your sleep on a Friday night before a Saturday marathon, you can actually bank sleep.
Like putting hours into a savings account.
Sort of, yeah. You intentionally increase your sleep duration by an hour or two in the several days prior. It provides a literal physiological buffer against the performance decline that usually follows acute sleep restriction.
That's a great tool to have in the arsenal. Let's synthesize all of this because we've covered a massive amount of physiological ground to build this ultimate shutdown sequence.
There's a lot of moving parts.
It really is. So the hierarchy of recovery flows like this. First, you fuel the overnight repair with the slow drip casein protocol. Second, you extinguish the inflammatory fire and anchor your hormones with tart cherry juice and magnesium bisglycinate.
Perfect.
Third, you pull the nervous system handbrake with neurophysiological SMR foam rolling and 4-7-8 breath work. And finally, you optimize your cave by managing the light cues and manipulating your core temperature.
It's a comprehensive, bulletproof system. But it's vital to remember, and I want to emphasize this directly to you listening right now, consistency beats perfection every single time.
Yeah, it can definitely feel like a massive checklist to take on all at once.
It really can. If implementing all 5 of these habits feels overwhelming, don't try to execute them all perfectly tonight. Just pick 2.
Just to get started.
Yeah. Maybe tonight you just focus on the tart cherry juice and leaving your phone in the kitchen an hour before bed. Master those 2 habits, then add the casein. Master that, then add the breath work.
Build it up slowly.
Right. Because elite performance isn't just built on the track while you're sweating, it's built while you're dead to the world.
Elite performance is built while you're dead to the world. I love that.
Yeah.
And I actually want to leave you with a fascinating glimpse into the future that Sundried teased in their research.
Oh, the genetic stuff.
Yes. Imagine where the science of recovery is actually heading. What if it evolves past these general guidelines and allows us to map our own personalized genetic chronotypes?
That would change everything.
Right. Imagine a world where a simple DNA swab tells you the exact minute your specific body is primed to run and the precise second you need to go to sleep for optimal muscle synthesis.
It takes all the guesswork out of it.
Completely. The factory shutdown sequence wouldn't just be an instruction manual. It would be hard-coded to your specific machinery, just something to ponder as you start building your own shutdown sequence tonight.
A truly fascinating thought to close on.
Until next time, keep optimizing.